Hello and welcome to the second ever episode of the Beer Chronicles. It is raining outside and you will probably be able to hear that because it's quite loud, so I do apologise for that. People would probably say it's a bit unprofessional to film during this time and I should just wait for it to not be rainy, but I'm thirsty now. So for the joke, I probably would have done this in the first ever video, but it's very much of its time. That just got loud. Plus there's a certain ambience to drinking in the rain, I feel. It's like, there's the two extremes. You either drink in the hot sun and it's refreshing and lovely, or you drink in a downpour of rain. Any normal average day that's between the two isn't as special. It's just a drink. But no, extreme weather can really affect it in an almost emotional way, you know. And then, of course, there's drinking a lovely warm beverage on a snowy blizzard-like day, which is nice as well. But that's sort of moving out of the realm of beer, so let's quickly rein it back in. For the joke, I would have started with this in the first ever episode, but it's very much of its time and would be dated in the future. So I thought, for the overall, longevity of the show, my first ever beer in the Beer Chronicles should be the Budweiser, because that is my personal favourite go-to beer. And if you watched the last episode, then you would have seen that. But for the second episode, we're gonna do the joke. I can't do an episode on this beer during this time and not make the joke. So here it is. Because I haven't already had enough of it in my life, we're gonna have some Corona. It had to be done. It's there, it's out the way now. But yeah, the obvious thing for this episode, because if you didn't watch the episode and you don't know what this is about, basically this is a chronicling of me trying different beers from this poster above me before I throw it away, because it's a very old poster. So I'm going to try and drink all the beers on there before I get rid of it. And while I'm drinking it, I'm just going to chat, just talk about whatever I want to at the time. And the video will last the length of me drinking the beer. So let's get this open now so we can officially start that. Also I've got this bottle opener in the shape of a pint, which is quite nice. So there we go, that's opened. Corona has a nice smell to it, I find. I'm talking about the beer. There'll probably be a few of those jokes littered throughout this, to be fair. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, the obvious thing for me to talk about during this would be the recent pandemic and how it's affected my life and the lives of the nation and the world even. If there was ever a time to just casually chat about it, it would be in this video, I suppose. But we're going to talk about Devil May Cry 2. Because quite frankly, in my personal life, I'm sick of, talking about the coronavirus. It's obviously one of the main topics that people talk about these days, and, rightly so. But, I don't know, I want a bit of a time out from that. So I'm going to talk about one of my favourite game franchises, but also one of the worst games in that franchise. Should be fun. So let's get started on this. Now, Corona is often, and again talking about the beer, Corona is often served with a wedge of lemon or lime in the neck of the bottle to add a bit of tartness to it. It's quite often done, but I don't know, during these chronicles I think I'm going to try each of the beers based on their own personal flavour and what they bring, and sort of, get a reading of each beer from that rather than enhancing it with other things. I just want to try the beer, and that's the point of the video. If I was to be out just drinking this in my own personal time, I'll probably consider the lime in there. It's one of those flavours where on its own it's fine for what it is, but you can absolutely see that little bit of lime making a difference. But again, the whole point of this Chronicles is to just sort of expand my own personal experience of beers themselves rather than, you know, the things that go with them. Have you really tasted what Corona tastes like if you've not tasted it without enhancers? That's the real question. It's not a bad beer though. It's not bad on its own without any sort of citrus added to it. It's not the best, but it's fine for what it is. I'll tell you what I will do though. I have an empty coupe glass just lying around here, as you do. I don't have any fruits up here with me, but what I will do is I will pour just a touch of that in there. And what I do happen to have available is a bit of lime cordial. So normally you drink around a wedge, so you wouldn't get much, just a little dash, little enhancement. So let's do this right. That alone is probably enough, and this will sort of mimic the experience, I suppose. I mean, not exactly, because obviously cordial's got a bit of a added sweetness element to it, but you know, it'll give us an idea of what to expect. And again, I have tried Corona before with, like, you know, the lime wedge in the neck and that, but I just thought this would be interesting. I'm only going to do this for a bit because I don't want to drink the entire drink out of this glass because it hasn't been cleaned in a few days. That adds so much to it. It's almost like the drink was designed to be paired with a bit of zest. Yeah, that is a marked improvement. But now that that's out of the way, let's get back to the basic. I'll just taste even blander now. And let's get on to the topic of the conversation, Devil May Cry 2. If you've watched my playthrough of the first Devil May Cry game, which I did with my friend John a while back, it should come as no surprise to you at all that I am a Devil May Cry fan. I absolutely love the franchise. It is my personal favourite game franchise of all time. So yeah, I'm quite into it. I do have a love, a passion for the whole thing. I played the first game at some point in the future, not sure when. John and I do plan on playing through the sequels as well, so hopefully if we can get that sorted, that's something for you to look forward to in the future. I don't like to make promises on this channel though, because very often plans fall through, but that is the intention going forward. But I've played the sequels on my own in my personal time many times. I love them. I absolutely love them. I have all the games, and when I say all of them, I mean I have the original Devil May Cry on PS2, I have the original Devil May Cry 2 on PS2, I have the original Devil May Cry 3 on PS2, I have the original Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition on PS2, I have the HD collection on PS3, I have Devil May Cry 4 on PS3, I have the HD collection on PS4, I have Devil May Cry 4 Special Edition on PS4, I have the DMC Devil May Cry Reboot on PS3 with the DLC, I have the DMC Devil May Cry Reboot Definitive Edition on PS4, I have Devil May Cry 5 the limited steelbook edition on PS4. I don't have a PS5, but when I do, you can be sure that I'm going to upgrade if I can and play it in its best possible version. I love it. I also have the anime on DVD, which a lot of people don't like. I think it's alright. It's not the best anime I've ever watched, and it's not the best Devil May Cry content I've ever, consumed as a consumer. And I don't mean I've eaten it, but you know what I mean. But no, for what it is, I enjoy it. I think, it's a fine way to pass the time watching it. I don't understand all the hate it gets. I mean, I suppose people who are fans of the game tend to enjoy it less so for the story and more so for the stylish action and, the really immersive combat gameplay to it. And the anime isn't that. The anime is trying to tell its own story based on the characters. And I can understand how people who are into the series for one thing and then don't get that thing from this other medium, it might not be for them, and I can completely understand that. But I don't go into an anime for an immersive gameplay experience. I go into it for a storyline and plot and characters, And as far as I'm concerned, the Devil May Cry anime is fine for that, and I absolutely do enjoy it. I've also got the 2 Tokyo Pop novels, which conveniently enough, and this was not planned, but I do happen to have them behind me. So I can just quickly show you those. There's the first one, which if I remember right, is set before the first Devil May Cry, so it's sort of a prequel. And then the Devil May Cry 2 book, which is definitely a prequel to Devil May Cry 2, so this is sort of set between 1 and 2. It's been a while since I read them, but I have read them, and they're good. I do enjoy the experience I get out of them. Of course, games were later released after these were released, and they have since made these non-canon. I don't know if anyone actually came out and said, yeah, we are considering these non-canon, completely ignoring them and doing our own thing or not, or whether, they just didn't even consider these at the time. But the storylines in later games do make the stories in these pretty much impossible, particularly if anyone's interested in reading these books, you might consider this a spoiler now, so maybe not listen. I just want to put out that, I mean, these aren't new by any means, but they're sort of lesser known, so you might have only just found out about them from me saying it, or you might have had trouble getting hold of them until recently maybe, so there's a good chance that some people may not have read these and are still intending to, so this is your spoiler warning now. But the first book contains Virgil, and basically the way Virgil shows up in that book means that Devil May Cry 3 wouldn't have happened, so Devil May Cry 3 has retroactively made that book non-canon, so yeah, things like that. But for what they are, and now they're sort of their own little alternate Devil May Cry reality, they're still good. I do enjoy them. But out of all the Devil May Cry stuff out there, I think it goes without saying that the best things are the games. They are phenomenal games, absolutely wonderful, wonderful games. Like I say, my favourite game franchise of all time. So, yeah. And Devil May Cry 2 is a game in that franchise, and that one is not quite as loved as the other ones, and rightly so. It's not great. It is the weakest game in the series. It was very much a letdown after the first game, and there are parts of it that are so bad that they are not defendable, unfortunately. I can understand all the dislike it gets. However, it also does seem to just garner utter hatred. People absolutely hate this game, and I don't think it deserves that. I mean, sure, it's not great, but it's an okay game. It appears bad when you put it side by side with all the other games in its own franchise, is very clearly not a good game in relation to those. But if you compare it with games outside of the Devil May Cry franchise, on its own, it's fine. It's an okay playable game. It can be enjoyed for what it is. But no, it's just a real letdown when compared to the other games in its own franchise, and that comparison really makes it seem worse than it is, and I feel that makes people who are fans of the other games hate it a lot more than they really should. I mean, it's still not great, but when I'm playing through the series, I don't skip it. I do still play it, and I enjoy it for what it is, even with its problems, which it does have. The big open areas with nothing in it, the bland brown designs, the underwhelming swordplay, which is pretty much pointless when you can kill everything in the game with your overpowered guns. And Devil May Cry should first and foremost be a hack and slash game, not a shoot 'em up. The underwhelming characters, the enemies don't really stand out at all. The plot is forgettable. Dante himself barely speaks, and that is probably the greatest sin of the game. But it does introduce new concepts which I think are noteworthy, and they are good enough that they made it into the sequels, so it's got that going for it. Things like, instead of having to lock on and sort of move to the side and press the jump button all at once in order to roll out the way, you've just got a dedicated dodge button now, which really improves that aspect. Being able to wall run, being able to shoot two enemies at once because you've got two guns and you can just aim them in different directions. The flying during Devil Trigger was greatly improved. I mean, it had some great concepts going for it, and they worked okay, but they were definitely improved in the sequels. Like I say, this game isn't perfect, but it was fine for what it was. Dante, as a character, he doesn't speak much, and he really should, because Dante is the wisecracking badass who doesn't really give a shit about what danger he's in. He'll always crack a joke and then kill enemies with style. That's what we've come to love about him. But in Devil May Cry 2, he barely talks. He's got this sort of dark, moody personality throughout the game. And that's not what we want from Dante. But aesthetically, his actual character design, the way he looks, the outfit he wears, it's one of the best in the whole franchise. He looks fantastic in this game, he really does. I do think his lack of personality is the worst thing about the game, and really it shouldn't be. There are gameplay mechanics which also aren't great. Like I say, being able to kill most things with your guns rather than having to get in close and do hack and slash combat, that's a massive flaw. But I don't know, it's just, even though it's a game and first and foremost gameplay should be the most important thing, I feel like with the Devil May Cry games, Dante's character is such an important aspect of it. It's one of the things that really draws us into the series, that it's just one of the biggest flops when they don't get that right. I do think if Dante had more lines, and the couple of lines he gets in this game, he only has a couple, they're good. Arius thought he was going to be king. Dante finishes him off with that one-liner, "King, yeah, here's your crown." Stuff like that. It's good. When Dante speaks, he's cool, but he just doesn't speak often enough. And if they gave him more lines and made him be the wisecracking badass that he normally is, then the whole game would have been like 20 times better as a result of just that. So that's one thing they really should have got right. Tone down the damage on the guns, and the way that you can just shoot enemies into a juggle. There are things about this game that are shit. I can only defend it so much. Yeah, tone that back, allow you to be able to rely on your swords more, and then, the game as a result will be more fun because you're in close quarters combat. It's a lot more risky, and challenge in the game is good. Close up some of the areas a bit. There's massive open spaces for no reason, and they're also ugly. If you make the areas more enclosed, then, a lot more resources can go into designing those to look nice. A lot more of the processing power of the console could have gone into rendering nicer looking places instead of having to, space things out over an open area and just make things look plain basic and shit. Come up with some nice character, like enemy designs. Some better boss fights. It needed a lot of work, to be fair. I do think it's one of those games where if there were ever in the future to get to a point where they decide to remaster them, and I don't just mean like HD remasters that we got, I mean like fully recreate them, like they've been doing with a lot of retro games lately. If they were to do that, this is one of those games where I would say don't just recreate it to look more modern. Change it. Take the basic idea of the game and alter the way that it actually turned out to just be better. Give the enemies better AI, tweak the gameplay so the guns you won't be able to rely on as much, and the swords will work a bit better. Throw in some new enemy designs. Get rid of the infested tanks, for the love of God, just get rid of them. This game would be salvageable. There is stuff about it that, does work, and if you lean into that and build things around it, then, there's potential there. Unfortunately, there is a lot of bad that does, sometimes tend to outweigh the good, and that has to be admitted. Like I say, I can play through this game and I like it for what it is, but it is still the weakest game in the series, and that can't be argued against, really. And I say that not counting the DMC reboot as part of the series. Even then, if I were to count the reboot as part of the series, I think it's a toss-up between my subjective love of the white-haired Dante universe and the fact that the reboot does not take place in that. It takes place outside of that, and the Dante in that game is not Dante in any way, shape or form. Virgil is not Virgil. Mundus is not Mundus. They are not even anything like what they should be. So, it's a toss-up between my love of the actual Devil May Cry universe opposed to the objective reality that the reboot has far, far better gameplay than Devil May Cry 2. So it makes it difficult to decide my preferred of the two games. Objectively, DMC, Devil May Cry, the reboot, is a better game than Devil May Cry 2. So objectively, Devil May Cry 2 is the worst game in the entire franchise. Subjectively, based on my own personal love of the series, it's a toss-up. I would probably still put Devil May Cry 2 at the bottom, though, because as much as I didn't really like the attempt to reboot a series that I didn't think needed rebooting, because it was still, it was still loved and could have kept going, and that was proven with 5. So even though I was sort of against the whole idea of rebooting it entirely, and I sort of hated the characters in it, I'd still say it's better than Devil May Cry 2, because the gameplay itself in the reboot is actually good. It is a good game. It's enjoyable to play, it feels good to control, it's just good. And then, the It had its own problems, but the definitive edition fixed most of those. And right now, the version that you can buy now is just it's a good game, and it can't really be argued that it isn't. Is it a good Devil May Cry game? Maybe not, depending on what you're looking for as a fan of the series. But is it a good game? Yeah, absolutely it is. That's sort of one of the things I come to in defence of Devil May Cry 2. Is it a good Devil May Cry game? No, not really. It's a real letdown after the first game, and compared to the sequels, it can't hold a candle to them. But is it a good game? I think it is. For what it is, it's at least an okay game. I wouldn't call it bad by any means. I would say it has bad elements. But when you look at games that are actually bad, as in this is a bad game, I don't think Devil May Cry 2 is quite there. I think it's playable and enjoyable enough to be considered an alright game. It's just when you compare it to the other games of its own franchise, that's when it really, it just seems so terrible in comparison, because the other games in the Devil May Cry franchise are just so good, so good, that okay games seem bad when you hold them up next to them. So that's sort of my defence of Devil May Cry 2. It's a bit, it's not a strong defence. I'm basically saying Devil May Cry 2 is okay, rather than saying, no, you got it wrong, Devil May Cry 2 is a great game. It's not, and I couldn't try to make people think that, because it's just wrong. But for what it is, I think it gets more hate than it deserves, and it's an okay game. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got to say on Devil May Cry 2. I've still got a bit of beer left, so I'll just spend the rest of this video talking a bit about the beer, I suppose. Yeah, it's alright. Like I say, it's better with the added flavouring of a bit of lime, and that's how a lot of people do drink it. They do stick a wedge in the neck of the bottle, and I understand why. It pairs really nicely with the beer, but on its own for what it is, it's okay. It doesn't beat Budweiser though, that's still my favourite. And that is done. So that is the second beer down. I've got some new fatter Sharpie pens, so hopefully they'll mark the poster better than the pen that I used last time, because that didn't work quite so well. So let's see how well this works. Oh, that is much better. Just go over the old one. Yeah, that is much better. Also, I'll point out that the Corona is one of the pictures on the poster that is duplicated, but as I mentioned in the last video, any duplicates on there will still only need to drink once because it's the same beer, so what would be the point? So yeah, that is Corona Extra, to give it its proper name, and just gonna move you down a little bit. And that's it. The beer is drunk, and so it is the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. If you want to keep up to date with these beer chronicles, then subscribe to the channel, and to make sure that you're notified whenever a new one comes up, ring the notification bell as well. If you like this video, then please press like to let me know that you like it, and if you don't like it, then feel free to press dislike as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.